Welcome back to the Physical Therapy San Pedro podcast. This is episode 49, and today we are discussing why it's important for high school athletes to strength train year-round. I am your host, Dr. Janae Brown, and I am joined by my wonderful team here at Physical Therapy San Pedro. And to my left is
Coach Zoe.
Ooh, that was loud, Coach Zoe. And he's giving us the sound
energetic.
today. And to my right,
Dr. Bay.
And to my very, very, very right,
Dr. Silverton.
Beautiful. So strength training is the topic for today. We love to talk about strength training. I actually wrote this blog for the very first time. It's my very first blog I ever wrote when we started the blog back in 2018, I think, 2019. We never recorded like a true podcast to it because it was our first one and we were just starting the blog. And it was really about why every athlete should strength train. And the basis for it when I first wrote it was that I was seeing as a sports physical therapist that like a lot of our clients would come in and their first exposure to strength training was through injury. And it was our high school athletes that would have an ACL tear or like a meniscus tear or they'd break their ankle, something like that. And they never were ever doing any strength training in their high school programming at their school or in their club teams and things like that. So I decided, hey, we need to start educating sort of the community that you guys need to strength train and you need to keep this part of your life if you're going to be an athlete. And if you want to be a really good athlete, it's like a necessity for you to do that. So we're going to talk about some of the reasons why it's important today. And we're going to just discuss all things strength training. This particular blog is going to be an article in our local San Pedro Today magazine. So it'll be published this month in November. So take a look at that. If you're in San Pedro, go grab that because it'll be a fun read as well. So, okay, let's talk, guys. We all love strength training. It's something we do on a daily here. It's really what we pride ourselves in as a clinic. So let's talk about first, like, what are some of the reasons that sort of athletes get injured in general? Because I think that's a huge thing that is the basis for why strength training is really important. So why don't you start us off, Dr. Silverton, and tell us what is the first reason that we see athletes get injured?
Just pure accidents. Stuff happens with any sort of engagement in physical activity. If you're physical in any way whatsoever, whether it's a sport or just going down the street, something can happen to you. Importance of strength training behind that is that the stronger you are, the more resilient your tissues, your bones, tendons, muscles are, the less likely you're going to take damage on that. And then the easier you are going to recover on the other side of it as well. So stuff happens. And the nice thing about strength training is that even though you're using your body with strength training, the incidence rate of getting injured during strength training is actually less compared to any sort of sport. Most back pain actually happens not while doing normal exercise or sports or anything like that. Most of it actually happens with just normal day-to-day stuff like sitting on the toilet or getting up from the chair or something like that.
Maybe not just sitting there, but the transition from sit to stand, that part. Yeah.
Both, yeah. Yes to all the above.
Prolonged sitting.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like we can't avoid like bad injury. We can't avoid bad accidents. If you're going to be an athlete, if you're going to play a sport, just like if you're going to fly a plane or you're getting in a car, right? There's a risk that comes with sort of that, right? There's a risk that comes with we're hearing some loud sounds upstairs, so it's impacting us. We're like, what is going on up there? But if you are going to play a sport, you have a risk of getting injured. And so we can't always avoid those things. We can't always control those things. Yeah. Do you guys have anything else to say about bad accidents or maybe experiences that you've had where, you had to educate patients on this? Anything about bad accidents?
No, I think
has anybody had any bad accidents?
I think Dr. Silverton hit all the notes, hit all the right things.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, our contact sports, right? It's written in the word there, contact.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And then in my dancers, it's not so much contact, but when something goes wrong, you're in the wrong place, you have to do something unexpectedly. That's when those injuries, those bad accidents are more likely to occur.
Yeah. Yeah. For sure. Okay. I'm doing the next one, which is under training. So unless anybody has anything else to say about bad accidents, I think it's pretty straightforward. Under training. So a lot of athletes think that when their sport is done, that they can just hang out on the couch and do nothing. So there's other athletes that are going to do what Dr. Bay talks about. But under training is something where if you're not prepared for whatever is going to be asked of you when you go into season, then there's a very high likelihood that you can get injured. So if you're not doing enough. So most sports, I would say, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong because maybe they're not, but most sports, what I see is that there's a ramp up period that the coach puts in place when the sport starts. And they're kind of in a bind. They can start the sport at a certain time frame and they have to end it in a certain time frame and they have to get their athletes ready. So the coach's expectation is that you have been doing something, some sort of things before you come back into the sport, not that you've been doing nothing. So they do try, a lot of good coaches try to do a slow ramp up phase, but regardless, if there's practice 5 days a week or 6 days a week or 3 days a week or 4 days a week, whatever it is, those are the practices that they're going to have. And even if you had a very low intensity practice, going from 0 to 3, 4, 5, 6 practices is a lot, right? So it's load, right? So when our body has an increase or a spike in load, you put yourself at risk for injury because your body's not prepared. Your ankle might not be prepared. Your knee might not be prepared. And if you have a previous injury, let's just say you sprained your ankle last year, and you don't do anything, and then you go into a spike in load, even worse, because you already have a history of a kind of a space or an area that has had to rehab right through or had an injury previously. So long story short, under training, not training enough, not staying fit enough in the off season. It's both, in our opinion, we're going to talk about strength training, but it's both skills training and strength training. Under training can put you in a place of injury. Yeah. I think I did that pretty good. And I kept out some things I didn't want to talk about. So I'm pretty proud of myself. I don't know how I did that, but
You did it.
Some people.
I did it. Some people don't do this well. I'm looking right at the camera. Okay.
But we want you to all make great decisions.
Yeah.
And do wonderfully and have fun.
Even our children.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to go back into Dr. Brown mode and go away from mom mode. So does anybody have any thoughts on under training? Anything that they want to share on that else?
I agree with everything you said. And speaking from like a student athlete perspective, the time where under training is, most prominent and where it happens the most is like during that Christmas break where they know they're off for 6 weeks. And some people will take the entire 6 weeks off to let their body rest, which is okay for a couple of days, but going 6 weeks without training can be, again, like very detrimental to not only to like performance, but also just like physical health, period. So we know that after, if you're strength training regularly, just taking a week off, you can already see like decreases in strength adaptations and neurological adaptations after just a week of not training.
Mm-hmm.
So you do that for 6 weeks, imagine how that's going to affect your performance.
Yep.
So I think, just training maybe 2 or 3 times a week, even during the off season. It doesn't have to be super crazy, but just things that are getting you to stay fit, stay active, keep your body moving. And, again, just we're trying to prevent injuries and make sure that when we come back from break and we're going through that ramp up period if you have a good coach who knows what he's doing, he'll understand that. But, just making sure that you're ready to go when you do go back in season.
Yeah. 1,000%.
Do you remember that track and field guy that we had earlier this summer from out of state? I can't remember if it was a patellar dislocation or a femur fracture, but
I don't remember him, but maybe he only saw you.
Dislocation.
Yeah.
Tall guy.
Yep.
You're talking. Yep, I rember him. Yep.
Yeah, he had a whole program that his coach gave him to do over the summer. He gave all his athletes to do that program the entire summer, and he did zero of it until we got him, until maybe about a month before he saw us. And then we said, "Oh, you're supposed to be doing this? Okay, let's get going." And he just got gassed just from doing the workout program on its own. And he said, your coach is expecting you to be at this level, like by the time you go back to school in a few weeks. Yeah, you're going to take a little bit longer than that.
Yeah.
Yes, coming off of injury, fair and all that, but he wasn't doing very much for the first 2/3 of his summer.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I feel like a lot of the athletes, my experience with the ones that around me, think that nobody's doing anything, so then I don't need to do anything, and compare themselves to it's, but I don't know how many times you have to learn the same thing over and over again. I mean, I guess that's human nature, right? We just have to keep like experiencing the same thing for us to get it, right?
Yeah.
But that's like life, right? A lot of our athletes are in that situation, and some are just completely opposite, where they just don't. They're going to do what Dr. Bay says right now, but there's the opposite, which is are we ready to lead into that one?
Yes.
Okay, take us in.
Just as concerning as undertraining is overtraining.
Mm-hmm.
So this actually, if you don't know yet, I'm a dance medicine specialist, and dance is a unique sport because it doesn't have an off season.
Mm-hmm.
So the patients I work with primarily are a little bit more subject to overtraining, and I'm really trying to beat in the idea of cross training and not overtraining. So overtraining is when you have a lot of repetitive activities and the volume builds up, especially during high stress periods. So in dance, that would be when you're preparing for a performance. Like right now, we're entering Nutcracker season, but for other sports, it might be the playoffs or when game intensity ramps up. So what we want to do is make sure that when your training ramps up, your body is able to meet the needs of that new stress load. So we don't want to keep everything very specific to just your sport. We want to diversify with our strength training, mobility training, jump training, agility training, and make sure your body is has a little bit more diversified experiences going on to it. What's the word for that? Stresses.
Resilience.
Inputs, and make sure that, it can be resilient on all fronts, and it's not just doing one thing over and over and over again. And that will help share the stress so it can be more resilient and avoid the impacts of overtraining.
Yeah. I think my pet peeve has always been, especially because I feel like at the college level, I think the expectation is higher for the demands on your body. And I think that you can handle the demands on your body to do more, daily practices or 5 days a week or just a couple of recovery days here and there. But I think what I've seen in overtraining is the youth and high school athlete, really the youth athlete. This is where I think coaches need to be educated that you can't have your 6th and 7th graders be in 6 days of practice or whatever. It's not okay. Number one, like to expect that of them, in my opinion. There's certain sports that are like that, like dance, right? Or like swim. It's like it's a 5 to 6 days a week sport. But like if you don't give your athlete variation, there's so many risks that come with that, right? So there's the burnout, which means they're never going to play that or do that sport again. I know my daughter, she swam her whole life, and out of her group of like swimmers she swam with, I think there was one other person who swam in college other than her. That's like a very low population for people that love to swim and did it their whole childhood. You would think that they would want to do it more, but I think there's a lot of burnout and then a lot of injury, right? Because those kids are just doing too much in the sport, and a lot of them are year round, right? So I think when we think about like variation in training, it's not just only like that you're doing strength training, right? But it's that you're playing soccer and then you're playing softball, or you're playing multi-sports when you're young, because then that's also another way for the body to get variation as well.
Yeah, we don't want to specialize too early.
Yeah. So, that's my pet peeve. I don't know if you guys have any thoughts on overtraining. Anybody?
Well, just speaking like the biggest conclusion or like the biggest thing or the best thing you can do to fight overtraining is recover, to rest. So again, like 6 days a week, and then you give yourself, 1 day to recover, and you go the next 6 days, that within itself is very harmful. So the biggest way to combat overtraining is to rest, right? So exercise 4 to 5 times a week, at least give yourself 2 to 3 days of rest, because that's where really all the growth happens, is when you're asleep overnight, your cells can repair, your body can repair, everything can just be improved by that. So I think it's just one of those things, again, that coaches don't really understand, like, if they are overtraining or if they're not, until they actually do it for themselves. Like, hey, this is kind of a lot of volume. Yeah, we need to make sure that the rest matches the demand.
Yeah, it's true.
I think something important we learned from some of the lectures that we participate in from the Curlin Job Institute
Mm.
is that I do this education piece a lot with my patients is matching the hours of practice in their sport to their age and making sure they're not exceeding that.
Yeah.
So I typically sit down with all my dancers or all my athletes when they come in and I say, okay, tell me your schedule. And I make sure that those hours don't exceed their age. And that's a pretty good line in terms of not overtraining.
Yeah.
That's on a weekly basis.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. I like it.
Yeah.
me too.
Yeah.
And so the conversation to have with the parents as well
Yes.
to get the parental buy-in, just
I
because they
like the
tend
parents to always be there.
yeah.
And I think
Sometimes it's parental driven more so.
Yeah,
is.
everyone needs to know this knowledge that we exactly like we said, we don't want to specialize too early. We want to not have those hours exceeded because everyone wants to be successful and have fun.
Yeah. And even us as physical therapists, when we're going from PT to return to sport, we have to be careful of that because we do this to our patients too, where we don't communicate well with them. We don't control their return to sport and they get re-injured. And that's another piece that I've had to get really good at as a sports physical therapist is really controlling their schedule, like being in it. I want to see your whole schedule. What days are you going to and telling them how much they can go back. Because really, if you don't do this well, you're going to see that you're not going to be successful with their return to sport either, because they're going to keep getting injured. So it's really a huge piece of the pie to get athletes back is to just control load and control time. Load is time and frequency. And intensity, right? Those are the numbers that give us load. So we need to control all those things. Yeah. Okay. Any other things about why these athletes get injured? What they're doing? We got it all. We talked about it all. Okay, we're going to move on. We're going to talk about the benefits of strength training. So Coach Alonzo Davis, not the third or anything like that, but just Coach Alonzo Davis.
They
That's
went the full government name with that one. Thank gosh he doesn't know my middle name.
I think I do. Should I say it?
Oh gosh, no.
Isn't it Shay? Isn't it what's on?
How dare you?
Okay, sorry. Not supposed to tell anybody. That wasn't his middle name. I'm sorry. So why don't you tell us, Coach Zoe, what 6 things that are really important and that could benefit those that do strength training?
Yeah, so I think at any level, whether it's youth, high school, or college, the first thing people think, or even just like general population individuals think that strength training is performance enhancement, which is true, but there's also other variables that make strength training very, very important. So that includes injury prevention, increasing recovery time, so the faster you're able to recover, skill development during a certain activity or mastering a certain lift, having mental toughness, and then again, just like the adaptation to the physical demands being placed like on your body and what it is you're doing. So if you want to have stronger legs, you're going to have to squat. Like if whether you hate it or love it, it's something that you're going to have to do. Why? Because it is a skill thing that you're trying to accomplish and something you're trying to obtain, like stronger legs, therefore you can have a stronger lower half and therefore you don't affect anything, up the kinetic chain.
Yeah. Like you said, the primary thing, let's start with performance enhancement, but the primary thing that people want to do is get better at their sport. Like most parents want their kids to get better. Most kids want to get better. Everybody wants to get scholarships. It makes a parent very proud if their athlete is playing in college or gets a scholarship. So especially because parents invest so much time and energy in their children to like put them in these sports and participate and be there and all that. So we want to get better. Typically athletes want to get better, and typically parents want their athletes to get better. So, in strength training, that's the kind of the primary reason that we see performance enhancement. Do you guys feel like at the high school level, do you think performance enhancement is as important to the athlete or to the parent? What do you think matters more at the high school level? Anybody?
Well, I want to say it's for the athlete, because I think that's the time where, again, age, 13 to 17 while someone's in high school. And that's when, the college offers start to come in, from freshman through your senior year, and then you start to get more exposed to weightlifting, especially if you're playing a sport. So I think they're the ones who want to increase from it more than anybody else because they see the benefits that they can get from it. They feel better, they feel stronger, they look better. There's a psychological aspect of that as well. So I think that's something that's very important for all of our high school and youth athletes to do is strength train, even if it's just you're doing push-ups or sit-ups in your room, things like that, something that gets you used to having to place some kind of stress on your body to help you adapt to it.
Yeah. And I guess a two-part to that is, and I would agree with you at the high school level. I think it's the athlete. At the youth level, I think it's probably more the parent. But I think it's a combo for high
Yeah.
school. What do you think? What are the things that happen within a strength and conditioning session or a strength training session that are going to help enhance performance?
Well, depends on what you use or what you mean by the word enhance.
Mm-hmm.
So I think that's number one. But there's 5 basic principles in strength training that we all try to master and replicate. And by we, I say like strength coaches at any level, high school, collegiate, professional, is master like the basic 5 movements. So that's like a push, pull, squat, hinge, and a carry. That could be below your center of mass or below the waist or overhead. So I think just having a session where you're mastering all of those different movement qualities is something that is very beneficial for the athlete, not just from a athletic perspective in terms of it doesn't relate to your sport, but just overall being able to move in different planes of motion, doing different things with different stresses in different areas.
Yeah. Any thoughts on that performance enhancement? Excuse me, and why strength training might enhance performance?
I think for the first, probably, unfortunately, half of my career, I was just using information that I learned from PT school
Mm-hmm.
and just other continuing education from the PT world. And we know as a profession, we know ourselves that we're not very great at actual strength training. We like to think so. We were good at the basics of it, as far as the baseline training from what we learned from school, but like, I don't think I was very competent in it until I started looking into it myself and trying to practice, put it into practice. Got a squat rack into the clinic and like started teaching people how to do it and how to progress people on it. And that's when like, it clicked that it made much more sense. And the research backs it up as far as, hey, people are going to be stronger, more resilient, and we can progressively load people this way in a relatively safe manner. And we can teach people good strategies. So that way, whether it's picking up the laundry or picking up a wrestler off the ground, that they can drive with the legs as opposed to pulling their back. And that's just life skills or sports skills. There is a good carryover. And that's where having a blend between PT and sports performance is great.
Yeah, for sure. I think also like the basics are like what most people don't really know how to do either. So I think basic strength training, I think when you bring a PT's knowledge together with an understanding of basic strength training, that's really what most of our athletes need. Because I think what happens is when they get exposed to any strength training in the world of strength training, sometimes it goes straight to performance, and they might be exposed to a coach that doesn't really understand movement and isn't a true strength and conditioning coach or doesn't have the training in the background behind it. So maybe it's a personal trainer. And so now we're working on just performance related stuff, but movement gets missed. Correct body mechanics get missed. And so injury could happen there too. So, but I think, the basics are important. Basics are something that I think a lot of athletes just don't understand, which is important. Yeah. Okay. Let's go into, so basically what we're saying is strength training improves your performance in many ways. And we talked about the strength piece, but there's the conditioning piece, the power piece. There's all these other pieces that also will enhance your performance. Let's go to injury prevention. That's our bread and butter as well. And I think S&C coaches like Coach Zoe are focused on reducing injury through the strength and conditioning programs that they put together. So injury prevention. What do you guys think in terms of why would strength training reduce an injury? How does strength and conditioning or strength training reduce an injury? Anybody?
I'll leave that to you guys first. This is your
want to weigh in? Anybody want to weigh in?
Tissues can take more loads before they break or before they strain or sprain. Bones are harder, tendons are tougher. They're getting used to getting worked at while stretched out with greater loads, and you're doing it under controlled circumstances. So the exercise is the practice. Training is exercise with the goal, essentially. So if the goal is to be better at kicking a soccer ball without pulling your hammy, then guess what? We're going to be working your hammies at length under tension. And doing that in a smart way can be helpful. And if you don't know how to do it yourself, then you ask for help. And that's where we come into play.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Dr. Ray?
Yeah, I think a big piece is the familiarity of the body. We want to make sure the body is comfortable in working in activities like the sport, but be able to take loads in different directions and different positions so that when you come to that position in your sport, like Dr. Silverton had the soccer ball example, that it's ready for whatever comes at it.
Yeah. And
that's our job, to make those challenges for the patient.
Yeah, for sure. I think also like I think about a shoulder, a strong and stable shoulder. So strong shoulder, stable shoulder can resist, if you're a pitcher, the forces of pitching, so like if you have a weak rotator cuff and unstable shoulder, you can't do a side plank, you don't have the stability in there, then you're not gonna have the stability when you throw, so these are the principles that lay the foundation for you to do the thing you want to do, essentially. Yeah.
I agree. And I think it kind of goes hand in hand with the adaptation to physical demands, or the SAID principle. So specific adaptation to imposed demands, meaning that whatever stress you place on your body, it's going to adapt to where it can be more resilient to that stress, especially for like our youth athletes, are playing like a lot of field sports. That's like your football, like your soccer, things like that. Sometimes, or if they're running at max velocity, you can reach up to 8 to 10 times your body weight. So if you don't have strong enough tissues to handle those forces, and be able to slow down those forces, that's where, the ACLs come in, the meniscus comes in, just because your body and your tissues aren't strong enough to really absorb those kind of forces, especially if you're generating them at such a high rate with such a great magnitude. So just, again, like you said before, Dr. Brown, we're trying to build a really, really strong base. That way you can like actually fight off and absorb these forces and go out there and play your sport.
Yep. Good stuff. Okay. You mentioned faster recovery. So why would someone who does strength training be able to recover faster? What would make, anybody have any thoughts on that? What about strength training would allow for quicker recovery? Anybody want to weigh in?
The exercise gets easier. So if you never squatted before and you squat, for your first time ever, you're going to be very sore the next day. A month goes by, you're still squatting, you won't be as sore. You might not even be sore at all. Why is that? Because it's something that you practice regularly, maybe 3 times a week. Again, it goes back to just being more resilient. You have increased muscle fibers, you have muscle hypertrophy. So now like those stresses aren't as hard anymore. They're not as difficult for you to do. Yeah. So now it's like, this becomes almost just like second nature. Like I know how to brace, go down, come up, and my legs know what to do. I'm strong enough to do that. And then, again, just that adaptation to imposed demand.
Yeah, that's good. I don't even think we need to say anything else about that one. Skill development is the next one you mentioned. So, improving strength translates into better technique and control, enhancing coordination and movement efficiency. So if someone, I think that goes hand in hand a little bit what you just said, but like if you're essentially if you're doing a skill over and over again, you get better at that skill, you develop that skill gets easier, and you can handle more, right?
Yeah.
And very similar. Mental toughness. Anybody want to talk about that? Mental toughness. Strength training improves mental toughness. Well, if you're doing a heavy squat and you got to get back up from the ground, that's some mental toughness. Get your butt up from the ground. Yeah. Any thoughts on mental toughness? You guys have anything?
Well, strength training puts you in some uncomfortable positions if you're doing it properly, I'd say.
Yeah.
And, sometimes in your sport, you have to dig deep to keep going, to make your body do what it needs to do to get the job done.
Yeah.
And that definitely correlates.
One of the things I love, this is the female athlete. So as a female athlete, one of the things that I love is being able to teach a girl, and talk about this all the time, but teach a high school athlete who plays soccer, a female, give her the confidence to go into any gym, go to the barbell, racket, squat, come back, and, just not be nervous that there's a guy over here that wants to get on the rack, or she needs to let him have it first, or whatever, give up the weight or whatever. So I feel like just strength training in general does develop confidence. And I think the females athlete needs it more because they haven't been exposed to it as much. But giving someone, any high school athlete, the confidence, and they're going to need that going into college, right? Yeah. Like they're going to have to, it's not easy going on to a team where you don't know anybody and you have to prove yourself. So teaching them those foundations in high school is like sauce. It's good. Yeah.
I'll say from, and especially like working closely with Dr. Sowerton from like a patient perspective, is that, individuals who are coming back from an injury are often scared of like the deadlift or the squat. And they would rather just like shy away from it as opposed to like taking it head on. Obviously, with proper coaching and cueing, they end up doing it and go, oh, wow, like I actually felt that, in my hamstrings, my glutes, I feel it in my back. So just one of those things where before they said, I don't do them, I stay away from them. And now it's like, hey, I can actually do this. And this is like a similar thing that we have in our strength and conditioning class where, we had a max day last Monday. And, one of the athletes was like, yeah, I don't know how I feel about the squat. And I was like, okay, well, you can do it. He goes, I might be able to get maybe 2 plates on there. And he ended up doing 245 for
So cool.
2 clean reps. And then he goes, I did not think I was going to be able to do that. So again, like you said, it builds confidence. So now he thinks I can do this. And now I know next time I'll add 255. Why? Because if I, attack it head on, I'll be more confident in myself. I understand like how to do it. I know what to do. And I think it also brings out like a nice little tenacity factor with both athletes and patients that like they actually welcome it. So now when we see patients come in, like, hey, you're doing squats today, they go, oh, okay, good. When on day one, they're like, oh, I hate squats. A month later, 2 months later, they're like, all right, how much are we doing? I'm like, okay, there we go.
Excited.
Yeah.
Excited about it. Yeah, it's good stuff. Yeah. Okay. So last one is the benefit of strength training is adaptation to physical demands. Strength training can be tailored to meet specific needs of different sports, whether it's speed, endurance, power. So it creates adaptation to some of the things they do. We talked about this a little bit with performance enhancement. Anybody have any thoughts on adaptation? Anybody want to step in?
Well, I feel like Zoe's really good at this.
I think it's
He's
really
obsessed with this, I'd say.
It is really important to understand as a strength coach or any kind of, personal trainer or fitness professional to understand what it is you're trying to do, what is your goal for the athlete, and understanding the rep range according to the literature, according to like the research, what's been shown about what it is you're supposed to be doing, at what percentage, at what intensity, at what speed. So I know if I want to train power, I have to move force over a certain velocity. That's what power is, force times velocity. So I have to have a high force moving at a very high rate of speed compared to strength where it's going to be a lot slower velocity, but the intensity needs to be really, really high. So I think depending on who it is you're working with, it's super important to understand what adaptation you're trying to go for because power and strength are not the same. Speed and quickness are not the same. Speed and endurance are completely not the same. So if you want to get your athlete faster, or I'm going to have them, run a couple miles or we'll do this for 15 to 20 reps. No, sir.
On the rehab side of things, it's similar considerations too. Not everything is 3 sets of 10. Yes, that's where we do a lot of rehabbing stuff. But I have a woman in her 70s and she doesn't have to lift heavy all day long, but she does have to help her husband out of the wheelchair. So we're not working 3 sets of 10 with a deadlift or a squat. We're in 3s and 5s possibly. So just getting her strong enough to be able to do that, and it's been working out great for her so far.
Yeah, and moving towards that. Also, it depends on the goal of the patient, but moving towards the 3 sets of 10 to if you're just trying to move through an injury and you're not an athlete, 3 sets of 10 could be good, and you can go into the gym and do 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 8, whatever. But if you're trying to move towards a goal of being an athlete who can move, lift, push, like do all these heavier things, you got to get your rep scheme down and your weight up, essentially your load up. Yeah. So, okay. So those are the 6 benefits of strength training. We recommend that if you're an athlete that you train year round, your whole season. However, Coach Joe does have a training recommendation for breaks, so I'll let him share that. But what's your training recommendation for breaks?
2 to 3 times a week if you can, especially if fall sports.
Well, not training, but what's your recommendation for a break? So say athlete comes off their season and then what do you recommend there?
7 to 10 days.
Okay.
Yeah, give yourself about 7 to 10 days, not only for just like the physical, but also the mental aspect as well. Like I told a couple of my athletes this like last week. Take your 7 to 10 day break. Go hang out with your friends. Go to the beach. Go hang with like, your brother, your sister, go do something fun, right? Because obviously 4 months of doing the same thing over and over and winning and losing can be a very grueling mental aspect as well, or mentally fatiguing. So just taking time to like enjoy life, enjoy the things that you love to do. And then once you physically feel better after 7 days and mentally feel better after 10 days, then we're coming back at it.
So some physical and mental recovery, right? And then go back into it. And when you go back into it, you and I think are on the same page. For strength training, it's 2 to 3 times a week. You should be kind of doing. Some athletes train year round, and I know coaches will have them in practices a couple of days a week during off season, which is totally fine as well. And I think I would encourage that as well if you're at least going into a season. So my recommendation is if you're starting your season, in August or something, you need to be starting to train 6 to 8 weeks before, little bits, and ramping yourself up towards whatever your training peak is going to be minimally. I mean, so that would be my recommendation.
Yeah. 2 to 3. And then as you get better, as time goes on, like 2 or 3 weeks, okay, now you can go 4 to 5. You just don't want to go 5 days out the gate.
Exactly. Slow up your ramp. You guys, any thoughts on training recommendations there?
The mixture of training also. So the off-season training is going to be more of the strength conditioning, build up on that. And then as you get closer to your actual competition, then that mixture of general conditioning, strength training goes down, and then the sport-specific training goes up.
Sure.
So whether it's a competition, a marathon, whatever performance day is going to be. But even as you get closer to that competition or during the season, still maintaining at least 1 day of strength training in there is still a good idea to maintain that level of strength.
Yeah, I'd say 2, but that's me being a hard but. Okay, so minimum, yeah. So, okay, well, that is kind of what we have for you today. We want to share with you that we have strength conditioning here in our center. We do it 3 times. We're starting our 3rd class this week. So we're doing 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So Coach Joe is coaching those classes. Those are for our high school athletes. So if you're a high school athlete in the San Pedro community or even around Palos Verdes, Torrance, anywhere around here, Long Beach, we welcome you. Come train with Coach Joe. He can get you strong, performing better, reduce your injury risk, help you get, if you're serious, you want to go to college, he'll help you prepare you for that. He also does one-on-one training. So we're talking about training in a class setting and a one-on-one setting. A one-on-one setting looks a little different. It's really focused on you. It's designed for you specifically, for your sport, for specifically what you want to do. So if you guys are interested in doing that, we have that here. Hit us up, contact us via any of our avenues, Instagram, Facebook, call us directly, Yelp, Google, all those things. If this is your first time watching and tuning in to this podcast, we have 48 other episodes that are on YouTube. They're on our podcast on Apple, Spotify, anywhere where you listen. You can read the blog in full form on our website at Physical Therapy San Pedro, but we have lots of content that we would love to share with you. So we're here to just educate you and give you guys good stuff. So check that out so that you guys can get educated and get to know a little bit more about something that you might want to know about. We're doing some fun things in here this next couple of months. So the first thing is that we're doing a Community Appreciation Day here in downtown San Pedro on November 7th, which is our first Thursday in San Pedro. On first Thursdays, we do food and all kinds of people in the community come out and sell things. We're going to be doing free injury screenings that day and giving away some goodies. So if you're in the San Pedro community, come by, come see our clinic, come get a free injury screening. We're going to be here that night, so we'd love to see you. That's just a good, thankful appreciation for our community here in San Pedro. We're going to be doing the 12 Days of Christmas led by our one and only Dr. Bay. She's going to make us do all kinds of exercises for you guys to get you guys excited for the holiday season and get you fit the first 12 days of Christmas. The last, the end of December, we aren't responsible for what you guys do, but the first 12 days, we're going to get you guys fit, right?
Yes.
That's the plan. So
keep moving.
Stay tuned on for our social media for that kind of content. And did I miss anything? We've got force plates recently. So Coach Joe's excited. We're going to be working with Val and our force plates and doing some fun stuff in our center. So we'll be playing with that. I think that's everything. Did I miss anything, guys? Try to plug it all, but there's a lot of stuff going on. Okay, well, I think that's it. Thank you guys for tuning in, and we will see you next month as we wrap up the year and head into 2025. See you guys next time. Bye.